And I'm Elise Glink, sitting in for John Williams. We've asked Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi to come back from the 8th District. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us again on 720. Sure. So we finally have a stimulus package signed.
Oh, we do. It was a little bit delayed, and unfortunately, because of that, some of our people who are unemployed may have lost upwards of a week of benefits because of the delay. That being said, I'm relieved because we averted a government shutdown as of tonight. And although this bill is far from perfect, it provides an initial dose of stimulus, and hopefully we can do more once Joe Biden becomes president.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see how it all plays out over the next couple of weeks. But when you look at this package, and we've talked about it, we talked about it last week, we're talking about it this week. The delay of getting it signed for people whose unemployment expired, I know that you said it could be another week until those checks start. What are people supposed to do? What would you recommend people do if they're finding that they have this immediate shortfall?
Well, first of all, please call my office. We'll do everything we can to help. I'm at 847-413-1959. This is a dire situation. I actually got a note about one of my constituents on Sunday morning. She's a 59-year-old contract employee for the schools. As you know, the schools have really basically shut down in terms of in-person learning, and she had her unemployment benefits lapse on Saturday night. And so we're trying to scramble to, help with, aid in any way, shape, or form, during this quote-unquote lapse period. But, this is a real hardship for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is a serious hardship. Are you pleased with, I know you said you're happy and that it's actually signed, and there were some places that you wish, things were different. Is one of those that you wish people, were being able to get the $2,000 that the president wanted as opposed to $600?
Yes, actually, today I'm in Washington, D.C. We're voting today to increase, to basically supplement that $600 with another $1,400 stimulus check. That's something that President Trump had brought up last week. I think there's actually going to be a lot of Republican support in the House for it. The question is whether Mitch McConnell would take it up in the Senate. I hope he does, because as you mentioned, there's just tremendous need, and $600 for one individual, it just doesn't go very far in taking care of the necessities.
Do you have any understanding why they limited the dependent checks to those who are under the age of 17? What was it about? You're still in high school at age 17. You're still, eating at your parents' table and living at their house typically. What was the deal with up to 17?
I thought that was a big mistake. It was a big mistake in the first CARES package, and my office has been trying to rectify it, but is run into stiff opposition from the administration to change that definition, because you're absolutely right. I think, college kids are really dependent, and in fact, they cost more when they're in their college years. And so taking care of them is a big burden, not to mention adult dependents, people that might be disabled or what have you and are living at home still with their parents.
Right, and we actually see this multi-generational household that's Correct. Actually exploded during COVID. Yes. As family members have lost homes or moved together, lost income. What are some of the, we talked about this briefly last week, but combining the stimulus with sort of the general operating, let's keep the government open, seems to have confused a lot of people, right? They feel now that money that's going off to foreign governments, which might be the regular operational part of what we do with the State Department, and we talked about that last week, but they've conflated this idea that money going off there could have funded money for people who are suffering from COVID or more PPE or whatever. Can you just explain why both of these things happened simultaneously instead of separately?
I think it happened because this institution is a crisis-driven organization, unfortunately.
And Congress.
Congress, yeah. Okay. We don't do our homework early, and as a consequence, what ended up happening is we basically had a year-end deadline for funding the government, as well as we mentioned, a deadline for unemployment benefits expiring and the need for COVID stimulus to happen. So basically, what happened from a procedural standpoint is that the powers that be said, okay, we got to do both, at the same time, and that's why you had a spending package with the different elements that you discussed, but also separately a COVID package. And by the way, those amounts that you talk about for foreign aid and so forth, that came word for word from the Trump administration's request for those line items. And so for the president to turn around and criticize his own request, it's just slightly befuddling.
Yeah, I can imagine. We had a question from area code 312. Since the stimulus checks are based on 2018 or 2019 tax returns, I would not qualify, but I was put on furlough from March through August, and then my job was eliminated due to COVID. How do I receive a stimulus since I have still not found employment? It's a great question.
It's a great question. Actually, this is a question that I've been trying to track down as well, because I've seen different reports. The caller is correct that initially the first stimulus package was based on 2019 income, and indeed even today they're still looking at 2019 income primarily. However, I just saw a blurb as I was preparing for this phone call where filers in April of 2021, so in 4 months, when they file for their 2020 taxes, may be able to claim stimulus benefits based on a lack of income in 2020. All that being said, why don't you call us? We'll try to track down the most accurate information possible. The regulations are like literally being written right now as we speak, so some of this is still being worked out, but we'll fight for whatever benefits we can get for you. And it's 847-413-1959.
Thank you for that, Congressman. Debbie is on the line with us now. Debbie, what's your question for the Congressman?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I have a new checking account number since the last stimulus, and I'm not for sure how I will be getting this next stimulus with a new checking account number.
Congressman?
Got it.
Yeah, and we've seen this a lot where, accounts get closed, people move them, whatever you were getting a direct deposit. I'm pretty sure if you haven't changed those numbers, you'll still get it. But what do you do in this case?
So it kind of depends on when the account changed. And rather than try to answer this specifically, contact us and we'll try to work through any problems that arose. There was an online portal for basically putting in your bank account information. All that being said, if that portal is still open, I would suggest going back there and reinserting it. If it's closed for some reason, then we will try to get the money for you through other means.
So the IRS...
and let me just, can I just say one last thing?
Of course.
Regardless of whether you get the money now, you will still be eligible to claim it as a refund in April on your 2020 taxes. I know people want to get it now, so that's what we want to try to do, but I just want to put that out there just so that people aren't panicking about it either.
According to the...
I'm sorry. Could I call my bank? Do you think they would have a cross-reference?
I don't know. You can try, but I think it really depends on what the IRS has on file for you right now. And so if you can go to that portal and see if the number that is on file for you is the one that you have now, that's one way to check. Otherwise, contact us.
Right. And also the IRS has started to update its payments issue. There's just a lot of stuff now that it's been signed that they are starting to update. But as of December 3rd, they said there was that same question, what if the bank account I used on my recent tax return is closed or no longer active? And in that, if they actually try to direct deposit to an account that's closed, the bank will return the deposit and you'll be issued a check mailed to the address that's on file. And the IRS does have some pretty good information on what's going on. So one question that we just had come in over text, Congressman, somebody texted in, what does funding the government actually mean? Are we funding those paychecks? And it's such a good opportunity to sort of have a basic, quick civics lesson. So, from your perspective, seated in Congress, when we talk about funding the government, that means?
So Congress has the power of the purse. That's delegated. That's a power delegated to Congress in the Constitution. So as a practical matter, what that means is the executive branch, so the president and all of his or her agencies that actually execute the laws and perform the vital functions of government, cannot do so without Congress actually appropriating or saying, here's your money, go spend it on X, Y, Z, and other functions. And so as of tonight, because of continuing resolutions, which are basically extensions, if you will, of the deadline to fund government, as of tonight, the executive branch, so the president and all the agencies, will not have the power under the Constitution to spend money on certain vital functions unless Congress gives them the permission to do so. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what that means.
All right. Thank you for that. Lee joins us. Lee, you got one of those fake unemployment papers. Did somebody file unemployment in your name?
Yes, they did. And it was a company I've never worked for. I followed all of the procedures that the state of Illinois said to do online. I filed a police report, did all of that. But the second half of the question I think is more critical, is they said I would be receiving a phone call from the state of Illinois to do a follow-up on this. I received what I thought was a phone call from the state of Illinois on Christmas Eve. I checked the number as they called, and it was one listed for IDES. The person sounded kind of unprofessional. I questioned her and said, how do I know you are really from the state of Illinois? She commented on the phone number, and then the phone call dropped out, and that was it. So I'm thinking I got a spoofed phone call on top of getting the fake paper.
Right. Lee, go ahead, Congressman. I said last week I also fired myself. This is just, should people just call your office for this kind of help?
Yeah, I would just call my office. Believe it or not, this happened to my wife.
You should not fire your wife. It's really bad for marital relations, just as a side thing.
Unemployment fraud is rampant. I'm sorry to say that. It happened to my wife. It happened to a couple of my colleagues here in Congress. I had a teletown hall just a few nights ago, and several people called in about this. Call us, and let's see if we can kind of get to the bottom of what's what and help you. Again, it's 847-413-1959.
Thank you, Congressman. We're going to have to leave it there. Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi on the relief package. Thank you so much for joining us.